If you're just joining us, welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. Chris Humphreys is a third-generation actor and writer. He's played Hamlet in Calgary, the Gladiator in Tunisia. He's waltzed in London's West End. He's commanded a starfleet in Andromeda. He's voiced Salem in the cat in the original Sabrina, and he's also played the dead immortal in Highlander. And he has written 20 adult novels. So stay with us. When we come back, we'll have a bit more on Chris Humphreys. If you're just joining us, you are watching the Writers' Corner live show. I'm your host, Jetty Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and this stream is made possible by StreamYard, by Creative Edge, and also Be Live Media, helping you to humanize your brand and to elevate your pitch with live video. If you want to know when we go live, do follow our Facebook page and also go ahead and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. And so if you're watching us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope, a hearty warm welcome to you. We're going to be welcoming author and actor Chris Humphreys, and we'll learn more about his journey. But in the meantime, let me please say a warm welcome to my friend and co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She's a special needs and disabilities advocate and the award-winning author of the children's Poolicious book series. She lives in Nashville in the USA, so do let us know where you are joining us from. We'd love to know. And with that, a warm welcome to Mary.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm very well. We always have a great chuckle, isn't it, when we do the show about how different it is because we live in two different parts of the world. I'm in Cape Town where it's so hot, and you guys in the middle of a blizzard.
I know. I'm looking at you in the introduction. I'm like, I need to take my jacket off because you look so warm. It's making me feel warm, which is great because we want to feel warm. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy weather here, but what do we expect? It's just a very different time for us in the world. So it seems to Mother Nature is right there up with all the craziness. And we're so excited to have Chris on today. And I meant to mention to him, we watched Sabrina. And so I know very well the character that he played on that show. And so do my girls. They were super excited to hear he was going to be on this morning. So I can't wait to hear more about him and just all about him, right?
Absolutely. So if you've just joined the Writers' Corner live show, Chris Humphreys is a third-generation actor and writer, and he played Hamlet in Calgary. He played Gladiator in Tunisia. He waltzed in London's West End. He commanded the Starfleet in Andromeda. How exciting. All these amazing roles. And as Mary just said, he was Salem the cat in the original Sabrina, and he also played a dead immortal in Highlander. But today we're going to focus more on him being a writer. He's written 20 novels, and we're going to be talking more about the Tapestry Trilogy. And so shall we invite him to the show?
Yes, let's do.
Okay, and let's say a warm, big welcome to Chris.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Delightful to be here.
Chris, I first want to ask you, where does the CC come from? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, it's a slightly odd thing, really, because I decided when I began writing to distinguish my writing career from my acting career, and I was Chris Humphreys as an actor, and so I thought, what's a good striking writer's historical fiction, which I was writing at the time, name. And I quite liked the idea of the double initials. It had worked quite well for a certain JK. So I thought, yes, why not go for that, CC? And it was actually some years later that someone also pointed out to me that my birth name was also a C. I'm not sure I should reveal it to the world. Yes, all right, I will. I was christened Cecil. And I never particularly liked Cecil. It was very old-fashioned. It was my grandfather's name, and very old-fashioned. And as an actor, I felt it lacked a certain dynamism, so I changed it to Chris. But then, as I say, I became C.C. Humphreys, and someone said, "Well, it's because you're Cecil." I went, "Oh, I suppose it is, yes." So, Chris Cecil Humphreys. The problem with Cecil, of course, is that in America they tend to call you Cecil, which is even worse than Cecil.
Yeah. It's so funny how that happens across the world, isn't it? You are so multi-talented, and come on, you got to do this. Come on, you worked hard. You worked very hard. Yes, and and with all the loves that you have, and there are a lot of people who are multi-talented in the world, and it's funny how when you talk to them, you find out that they have one love over another that they prefer, or what they started with. Maybe they started as a dancer or singer or actress or a musician, and that's their first love. So do you have something you prefer over the multitude of creative abilities you have?
I've been thinking of that lately, mainly because I'm pining to do some acting again, which is much harder to do in these times, obviously. I couldn't choose between them. It would be hard for me to put, when eventually they lay me 6 feet beneath the earth or into the earth, whether I'd put actor or author number one on my gravestone. I am both. I mean, ultimately, what I love about the writing and why I moved from mainly being an actor author to being an author actor, I do less acting these days, is because of I could control it much more. I got a little fed up with I love acting. I absolutely love it and treasure it and still try to do it as often as I can. But the business of acting is a pain because you're always waiting for someone to give you the opportunity to be creative. And I realized that I had too many stories to tell. And that was the other thing that much as I enjoyed telling many of the stories I got cast in over the years, you mentioned some of them, there were also an awful lot of things that I hope never see the light of day again. That someone will suddenly say, "I was watching some obscure television program the other day, 2 a.m, and there you were being an idiot." And I was going, "Yeah, I probably was." So there was that as well. But so I realized that I needed to tell my own stories, and so ultimately the answer, Mary, is that I really do love them both. I shall always be both. What I mainly prefer to do these days, though, I've done an awful lot of television and film work. I mainly prefer, if I'm going to act, to get back on stage because I crave the live experience most of all. And I am, in fact, hopefully in April, if by then they've relaxed regulations enough to allow even a small audience back into the theatre, which they might do by then. Here in Canada and British Columbia, if they allow 50 people in, which they did back in October, and I did a little show, I'm going to be doing my one-man Shakespeare show, Shakespeare 1600. So I will do that again, and that'll satisfy that craving. But meantime, of course, I can satisfy my creative urges by sitting down and writing every day. When I finish here today, I'll be off to my desk to write. So
wonderful.
That is amazing. So being a third generation actor and a writer and accomplished it both, have you ever sort of considered doing something out of the creative sphere? Was that ever a thought in your head, even just for a second?
Out of the creative sphere. Oh yes, I mean, when I was a teenager, I had no clue what I wanted to do. And coming from a family of actors, all four grandparents were actors. My dad was an actor, not a terribly successful actor, unlike his father, who was very successful. Cecil Humphreys, he was a star. People might even remember him from movies like Wuthering Heights with Laurence Olivier or The Racer's Edge with Tyrone Power. So Cecil Humphreys, mainly a Broadway star, actually, though British. My dad, not so successful and sort of deeply frustrated by it. My mum's dad, who was Norwegian, also similarly more successful as a writer, though he wanted to be much more successful as an actor. So I think my mother appreciated the frustrations that are involved in the acting business and that lack of control I mentioned before. So she did not want her baby boy to become an actor. So I had no idea. I didn't discover acting. It wasn't something I did at school until I was about 17. So I was going to go to university, didn't really know what I wanted to do. My mum said, "Oh, wouldn't it be lovely if you were a lawyer?" So I thought, well, okay, I don't know. I mean, I'll put down law. And then I got cast in the lead in the school play, and that was it. All the genes kicked in, and I won an award at a school's drama festival, and suddenly I thought, that's what I have to do. So I went to drama school instead. So there was a brief time when I considered being a lawyer. When I was a child, I wanted to be Zorro, but apparently that's not a career. So I had to choose something else. So there were other things, I suppose, a few other passions, but really, no, I was marked from birth to be in the creative industries. Oh, I can't hear you suddenly.
Hold on.
Oh,
there we go. Is that better? Okay. So yes, being a lawyer, is quite a production itself. And, it does require some acting skills. I think in courtroom, there's a lot of drama. And, being on the stage, there's that energy, that live energy. I know my girls absolutely just crave it. It's just unlike, I think, any other kind of energy when you're acting, for sure. Okay. So we're going to switch for a second to your books. And we're going to talk about your trilogies. And so will you tell us about what you're working on currently? But then, we want to hear about because you have two trilogies, correct?
Yes. Well, I do. I have. It's interesting because like a lot of authors these days, I've changed. Well, I've had to change because the industry's changed so much, and I'm doing two quite different things. So the one hat I wear is the traditionally published author. So I'm still, all my novels to date have been published by either Penguin Random House or Hachette, which are the two biggest companies in the world. But what I've needed to do in order to keep earning a living, because the rates they pay you these days have dropped a lot. I won't go into a rant about the industry, but I used to get a living wage, and that hasn't been true for a few years. So I had to be nimble, like a lot of people, and so I started getting my backlist back, and then I started writing stuff to sort of fit in with the backlist, which is the case of the trilogy I'm bringing out, and I'll discuss the other one in a second. So the trilogy I got the rights back and self-published. Two of the books had been published before by Penguin Random House. One was called The Hunt of the Unicorn, and the second was called The Hunt of the Dragon. Both published, and they did reasonably well a few years back. But I thought, authors always complain, right? So, but I always felt that, and I understand the publishing industry has a problem in that it's like a beast. They have to keep feeding it, and there's all this. And so many books come out, they have a very brief moment in the sun to shine, and then they're gone again. So I got the rights back, and then I thought, I'm going to write a third book and make this a trilogy. And that became the Tapestry Trilogy. So this is the self-published version of The Hunt of the Unicorn, which is the first book in the trilogy. Then there's The Hunt of the Dragon, and then there's The Hunt of the Shapeshifters, which concludes that trilogy. So I've released that. So I'm now what they call a hybrid author, in that I'm both traditionally published and also doing some self-publishing.
That's amazing. I want to ask you really quick, just what's the age range for the trilogy that you just showed us? What age do you think it's good for?
The age range, I was never one much to go, oh, this has to be a young adult book, and I'm slightly wary of age limits put on books. I mean, obviously, if it's got graphic content and stuff, you've got to issue at least a warning. But I know that I was reading adult books at 13. So I wrote this book, and Knopf wanted it to be a young adult, right? So Hunter the Unicorn, But I don't write any differently, really. The subject matter might change. I mean, this book is a journey of a young American woman into from Manhattan through the famous unicorn tapestries in the Cloisters Museum in New York. These amazing medieval tapestries. She gets summoned through the tapestries by a unicorn into the land of the fabulous beast, where all our myths live. So it's that double world thing. Now, of course, the protagonist is a young American woman. She's 16 in the first book and ages up to 21 by the third book. But it's amazing how many adults to me. Well, it's not amazing. I mean, it's that sort of story. A lot of adults read it. It actually was runner-up for an adult fiction prize out here in British Columbia in Canada, where I live. So the simple answer to your question is that anyone from a smart 11-year-old could read this book. I usually say 13 and up, but the content in the series gets progressively more adult, I suppose, in that I'm interested in diversity in writing. So in book 2, Hunt of the Dragon, there's more sort of multicultural, multinational characters, in that one of the protagonist's best friend, the sidekick, it's very important to have a sidekick, is a computer nerd Vietnamese refugee Thai kickboxing gay character. And he's kick-ass. His name's Wee, and he's great. And he falls in love with in our land he'd be African American, but in his land he's from Scarabia, and he's called Scarab, and he's a pirate. So there's a bit more diversity as the books go on. But again, that content, is absolutely acceptable to teenagers today. So we're thankfully in a much more tolerant and increasingly diverse world. So,
Chris, tell us a little bit about your book, Plague.
Plague. Okay, let me lean sideways. Oh, lean that way. There it is on the shelf behind me. Right. Plague. This is actually not the cover that's appearing in the US right now. It's but this is one of the covers. This is the British cover, I think. Again, Plague was Plague is my CC Fiction, under my CC Fiction hat, CC Humphreys, and it's it's a religious fundamentalist serial killer story set during the Great Plague of London, which was, as many of your listeners will know, of course, is 1665 in London. London was hit by the Great Plague in 65 and the Great Fire in 66. And so I came up with this idea of this sort of murder mystery story. It's what I often do as a historical fiction writer, particularly. I take a huge backdrop and then set very personal stories against them. I coined a phrase for what it is that I write, which is true of my fantasy really as well. I write the intimate epic. So there's the backdrop of the Great Plague of London, but against it is this highwayman who was a former soldier and is kind of a lost soul. Who is accused of the brutal and bloody and very ritualistic murders of 3 people in a carriage, and stalked by the sort of 17th century equivalent of the police officer, which was the bounty hunter. Ooh, you've got my name spelt wrong. You've got Humphreys down there for some reason, in some strange way. Humphreys is a 3rd-generation actor. Anyway, we can come back to that. You can change that.
That's not good. We need to fix that.
Yes, Humphreys. It's another name.
Oh.
Yes, C.C. Humphreys. Anyway, so that becomes the how to prove his innocence, and the thief taker and the highwayman join forces with an actress whose husband has eventually we discover fallen victim to the same killer. So I was quite, it was interesting to write that. I mean, partly because it became a murder mystery book. It became a crime novel, and I was I was first nominated for and then won the Best Crime Novel in Canada award for it.
Wow.
So I was deeply surprised to suddenly find myself to be a crime writer as well. And in fact, I'll have to show you, it's called the Arthur Ellis Award because it's named after the hangman who used to check into hotels. That was the pseudonym they used to check into hotels, to be the hangman in Canadian towns. Look at this. That's the award. It's kind of macabre, isn't it? But there it says, Arthur Ellis Award, Best Novel. So yeah, that's Plague. Now, Plague, again, did very well traditionally, particularly in Canada. But I couldn't get a US publisher for it. So I thought, I'll publish it myself. And would you believe, of course, it's doing very well now. I mean,
good.
I was talking before about how, the last thing some people want to read about is pandemic times. And yet it's the thing most people, a lot of people want to read about most, because it's, to get a perspective on our world and what we're going through now. That's why people read historical fiction often, to go back and give a little sort of check with how we were once, how we handled. Oh, I'm still Humphreys down there. See, Humphreys. Maybe I should change my name to Humphreys. I don't know. You're making it look good by flashing it up in front of me like this.
She's very, very talented. Her talents are never ending. So there you go.
Anyway, the other thing that you did ask me about, which I realized I didn't answer, was about the other trilogy, which I've done right now, which is again wearing the hybrid hat. It's this one. Oh, I'm reaching back here. It's called the Immortals Blood Trilogy, and this is high epic fantasy. This is the sort of, dare I say, Game of Thrones style fantasy of a very different world in an epic setting. It's quite different from that in that it deals really with the subject of immortality, which is why I call it the Immortals Blood Trilogy. That's the first book, Smoke in the Glass. And the second book, The Coming of the Dark, is out now as well. Just came out a couple of weeks ago. I think it's out in the States already. Smoke in the Glass certainly is. And that's published by Gollancz, who are one of the top. Oh, you've got my name right now. That's great. Good morning, Mitch from California. I see he's just appeared. So that's out in the States now. It's a big fantasy epic about immortality and these three very different worlds. One kind of Viking world, one sort of Mesoamerican like Aztec or Inca, maybe a mixed bit of a blend, and one Greco-Roman like Constantinople or Byzantium or something like that. And they don't know about each other, but they all have immortality at their hearts, kind of the 1%, the rulers, the elites. And people only find out they're immortal when they die and are born again, of course. So it's like this lottery, a lottery in the blood. And then they become special in their worlds. But do they use that power for good? No, not really, because they're human as well. And they become exploiters. And it's about what happens to that world when a fourth world that has been hidden up to this point behind unclimbable mountains and unsailable seas have united. These four tribes have united on none of them are immortals, but they've been given the promise of a child who is going to be born, who will be neither man nor woman, and give them the world. And so that's the setting for Immortals Blood. It's quite interesting.
Yes.
So Chris, tell us, you've played so many exciting roles. You are an accomplished writer. What's next for you? Is there something on your wish list that you'd really, really, really love to do still?
Well, I suppose what I and this is a shout out to any producers who happen to be watching. Of course, I'd love to see one of my stories get to the screen. Many people have commented over the years about my books, I can see the movie when I read your books. And I go, well, I wish you would see the movie when you read one of my books. My stuff is very filmic. It's very strong on character, but I also write in a very visual way. I mean, I suppose that's my background as the child of theatre and television and films that I am. I would love to, and many have been optioned. Plague was optioned. My very first novel, The French Executioner, was about the man who killed Anne Boleyn, which is an incredibly mad sort of historical fantasy tale. That was optioned twice. My most successful book is a novel called Vlad, the Last Confession, and it's the true history of Dracula. And that sold in 13 languages, hundreds of thousands of copies around the world. That is currently under an option at the moment. We'll see. As ever, when the first option came out, it was like, oh my goodness, they're going to make a film of what? And then of course it doesn't happen, and so you wait and you hope. So that's the longer term answer for your question. That's what I would, because obviously in every book I've written a role for myself.
Right, of course.
The longer they take to get to the screen, the older I get. So the character I wanted to play, I can no longer play. So I'm just going to be playing the old dude in the corner, mumbling into his phone.
Well, listen, we need to get you to tell everybody where to find you, because we're about out of time and we've got to have you back on. 30 minutes goes by so fast. And so where can everybody find you and find your books?
Well, they can, my website is authorchrishumphreys.com. All one word, author Chris Humphreys. But you've got to spell Humphreys, not Humphreys, R-E-Y-S. That way you can see Humphreys. authorchrishumphreys.com. That's where all my books are. People can get in touch with me through Twitter. I'm at HumphreysCC. I'm on Instagram. I've got a Facebook author. CC Humphreys is my Facebook page. Amazon Central, all the usual places. And I maybe you put up show notes. I don't know, but you can put the links in there. But the easiest way to contact me is via my website, and that's where you can see all my books. And I urge people, if they're interested in buying the books, if you can, the Tapestry Trilogy you can only get on Amazon right now. It's also available as an audiobook, because that's what I'm doing right now during lockdown as an actor. I'm an audiobook narrator, so I narrate my own and other people's. But all the other books can be bought, obviously, at all major outlets. And I strongly encourage people to use bookshop.org, because that's the company that gets local bookstores to send the books out. And if you go to bookshop.org, you can order some of my books, certainly. And then the local bookseller will benefit from it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that was a good, nice plug for them. So, yes, well, we love having you on today and hearing all about your life and journey and what you're into and what's happening, what's going on, what's coming up. It's been very exciting.
Thank you so much. It's been a delight to be here. Thank you for being so kind.
Well, you are welcome.
It's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show today. Thank you for spending some time with us. And as Mary said, there's so many more things we'd love to pick your brain about. Being an author, being an actor, and some of your other works. Because you've written 20 novels, so there's a lot that we could possibly go and unpack there about your journey, certainly as a writer and as an actor.
Well,
so thank you very much.
I'm also a playwright and a fight choreographer, so we could do that next time.
Yes,
and a narrator. We don't want to forget that. So a huge big thank you to everyone who's joined us live today, whether you watched us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Remember to write good stuff and join us again next week, same time on the Writers' Corner live show. Until then, stay well. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.